one. Good. Okay.
This one?
Yep, take it away.
Okay, thank you. Welcome back to Videos from the Ville. This is Professor Charles Greenewalt from Millersville University, and this is Canadian Government and Politics. In this particular segment, we want to take a look at Canadian political culture. And the place to start, of course, would be what are the elements that comprise Canadian political culture? What is Canadian political culture comprised of? We find that Canadian political culture consists of one, certainly a commitment to popular sovereignty. The principle of popular sovereignty is perhaps best understood and best explained as a popular support for democracy. People of Canada believe that they should have a form of government that attempts to maximize the common good by satisfying the needs of as many people as possible, and that they are the ones who should select their political leadership. Okay. So a commitment to popular sovereignty would be the first element in Canadian popular culture. The second element in Canadian popular political culture would be political equality. There's a belief in Canada, of course, that every adult should have the right to vote, that every person should have one vote, that no one's vote should be weighted differently than another person's vote, and we find that the additional assumptions that lie behind political equality in democratic elections would be that the voter would have real alternatives from which to choose, and the voter can make his or her choice freely. The third element in Canadian political culture would be majoritarianism. Now, there's different ways of understanding majoritarianism. Two definitions that come to mind is one is in the electoral process. It's the candidate who gets the largest vote should win the position as a representative for his or her societal unit. The second way of understanding majoritarianism would be in the area of policy and policy making. And the second way of understanding it is in the making of policy decisions. When we have a situation when unanimity is not present, the alternative preferred should be the largest number of representatives for the policy that will be then implemented. There are limits to majoritarianism, is that we should not have any violations of political freedoms. And the political freedoms in Canada resemble those that you understand here in the United States. Freedom of speech, the freedom to print or publish, and the right to assemble and peacefully demonstrate. The right to assemble and peacefully demonstrate. So those are the limits to majoritarianism, if you will, that no violations should be made of their political freedoms. Now, political culture in Canada is different from the political culture in America. We find the conservatism that is found in Canadian society allows them to support more collectivist tendencies in the nation, since the state is viewed as being responsible for its citizens and obligated to provide a minimal level of subsistence for them. Canada is much more in agreement with economic egalitarianism and the use of state power to promote economic egalitarianism than is true in the United States. The United States, on the other hand, is much more highly committed to social and political egalitarianism than to economic egalitarianism. Paradox with Canada is that Canada has this commitment to have a rough economic equality, but yet while they have this commitment to try to bring a greater equality of people economically, there's still a considerable amount of social inequality. So whereas they stress economic equality more than the United States does. They certainly have more of a social inequalities than you might find or would be preferable in the United States. What are the sources of Canadian political culture? Very important to understand what what political culture is and what the sources of it are. In Canada, the sources of political culture would be one, non-revolutionary political evolution. Here in the United States, of course, we find that one of the sources of our political culture was a revolution, a revolutionary movement. Here in Canada, we find that we have non-revolutionary political evolution, that we simply let the state and its policies evolve over time. So the number one source of Canadian political culture is a non-revolutionary political evolution. Number two is the relative dominance of the Roman Catholic and the Anglican religions. The relative dominance of the Roman Catholic in Quebec and the Anglican in Ontario religions. You find that just like the United States, the third element in Canadian political culture is an unconquered frontier. We had a western frontier. What little frontier we have left would be in the northwest now in Alaska. But you find that Canada has a huge, a massive, unconquered northern frontier. And that plays a huge role in determining what Canadian political culture is like. And number four is the Judeo-Christian religious tradition. Judeo-Christian religious tradition is the last source of Canadian political culture, the Judeo-Christian religious tradition. And here on the PowerPoints, you see that we have portrayed one of the books that takes a look at this issue, and that's In Search of Canadian Political Culture with Nelson Wiseman. There's another part of that PowerPoint on the lower right-hand circle where it tries to make a acronym out of Canada and express what Canada's all about. The C is cold, the A is arboreal, the N is new, A is apologetic, D is democratic, and A is awesome. The acronym is Canada. And of course, there is Queen Elizabeth II, of course, is the Queen of Canada, sitting on her throne with the Prime Minister at the time, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, sitting to the right-hand side of the throne for her speech to the Canadian Parliament. Okay, well, this will wrap up. This is a quick overview of Canadian political culture. Tune back in for the next lecture on Canadian government and Canadian politics. We'll see you then.